Welcome, Rat Race Rugged. Today in our interview series, we have Paul Bauer of the Come On Man podcast, which you can find a lot of places, and he'll tell you about that once we get into it, and we'll have links in the description down below. Paul and I have gotten acquainted through mutual respect and admiration for some of the work of Coach Corey Wayne. And Paul, tell us a little bit about yourself. Tell us like where you live, where you're from, what you do on a day-to-day basis. Tell us what your rat race looks like. So, it was the point. I've mentioned it in all of the interviews that we've done so far. We're looking at for guys out there trying to figure out, get that spark, trying to get rugged, and getting stuck in the rat race of having to, pay bills, feed themselves, feed their kids, keep a roof over their head, but still want to do more. Tell us a little bit about your rat race. Tell us all of the things that could get in the way of you pursuing all of the rugged stuff that we'll talk about shortly. What is it? What's a typical day in the life of Paul look like?
Okay. Well, it's funny that, your show's called Rat Race Rugged, but I don't like looking at it like a rat race because I feel like it's kind of negative. I'm a positive person, but my typical day, so like a Monday through Friday, I have a career. I work in IT. I'm an IT director for a tech company in California. It shall not be named. Sure. So I do that. I've been working remotely from my house for the last going on 9 years now. So, that gives me a lot of flexibility to do a lot of things that I think most people don't. So that's part of it. I work out 5 days a week. I'm an avid runner. I like to run 3 days a week. I like to lift weights on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Right now, I change up my
Sure.
schedule periodically when things get boring. We're like we've connected through the 3% Man group. We have some mutual friends in that group. So I like to stay active in that community. I like to date.
Good.
Right? Like I like to have work on my dating rotation and just sort of keep up to date on that. But, I don't like to make that a prime focus. I think, like you're in the 3% Man community, a lot of those guys, that is their focus is right. Trying to get women, trying to get dates. But I feel like you should be working on your purpose and, sure. Women are just the icing on that cake. I really devour audiobooks constantly. I feel like it's effortless learning. So when I go to the gym, when I go running, when I'm commuting, driving around, I listen to audiobooks avidly. So, and the funny thing is one of my last long-term relationships, that gal got me into audiobooks because I'd really never thought about it before. I'd listened to podcasts a lot. So moving from podcasts to audiobooks was a pretty easy transition, but I just never thought about reading like self-help books and stuff like that.
Got it. So yeah, you've got a pretty tough schedule there. Being in IT has got to keep you on call and active and busy, even if it is out of your house. So these days a lot of people are working from home, and if you've got to work, whether it's at your house or whether it's at an office. It is nice to kind of cut out on the commute time. But it can still, get in the way, and a lot of people can use that as their excuse to, not pursue that ruggedness. And I saw some pictures there of a motorcycle, so it kind of looks like you like to do that as well. So you've got some hobbies that you're pursuing outside of just the, strict, ruggedness with the workouts and stuff. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's fair to say. So a lot of that stuff too, just that came all out last year. Like I've been working out really consistently since 2016. I made like the conscious decision to make a lifestyle change back then. And since then I've made it like a discipline, because if you don't do it every day, it's easy to say, well, I didn't do it yesterday. And the next thing you know, 4 months go by and you're 100 pounds heavier. Sure. So back then I made that a discipline, but really like up until probably 2019, my life consisted of work, spending time with my kids and spending time with my girlfriend. And like, that's it. I had no friends. I had no real hobbies. You know, like I'd work out and stuff like that, but I never looked at like a hobby. It was just something I had to do. And so, you know, like I never lived for myself. And it wasn't until like last year, you know, 2020, very beginning of the year, before all the lockdown stuff too, that I was just like, I've got to figure out what I'm doing wrong in my life. And you know, that's how I stumbled on, you know, Atomic Attraction. I stumbled on How to Be a 3% Man, stumbled on Dating Essentials for Men, No More Mr. Nice Guy, those types of books.
Wow.
And those just completely changed my life. Cause I always looked at, you know, I was always looking at, you know, I had to be in a relationship. I always, you know, I didn't worry about friends. And now I've learned that no, you need to have good male friends.
Yeah.
You know, it's very important. It's important to have a lot of hobbies, things that keep you busy, things that are separate from a relationship, because those types of things make you interesting.
Right.
And then women just sort of come along naturally after that. And it's like, oh, you know what? I've been doing this wrong my whole life. But yeah, getting to the motorcycle thing, that actually is because I was dating a gal last year. And she was into motorcycles. She taught me how to ride, and I, you know, I had cash. So I went and bought a bike, and now I'm a biker. So
how about that? Just that simple. She talked you into it. So you went out and got a bike.
Yeah, it was literally like that easy. She was like, she had a motorcycle. I was like, oh, that's really cool. And she's like, I'll show you how to ride it. And I was like, really? Okay. You know, I'm no pussy. So like,
right.
So
you're doing it, I got to do it.
So yeah, so she showed me the fundamentals. You know, she let me ride her bike, you know, around the block, you know, at her house a bunch until I got comfortable with it. And she made me get outside my comfort zone a lot with it too, you know, because she's like, I want you to go down Main Street where there's all these stoplights. I'm like, there's no way. I keep stalling out the bike. Like, there's no way I'm doing that. She's like, fucking don't be a pussy, you know? And so I was like, all right, fine, call me out. But now I'm good at it.
I have a funny story about that. It didn't end as well. Ended up out on a boat one day, and was like a big boat, you know, where they're like, you know, you can kind of lay out on top. And the guy who was driving, it was his boat. He was driving it, and you know, we're like headed towards this big buoy that's got a sign on it that says "Danger, Navigational Hazard." And we're headed for this thing, like just like a bowling ball headed for the head pin. And there's these two girls like laying out on, like, you know, on the boat, like up front. And I'm thinking everybody's seeing this, right? Like, and I'm the only one getting nervous about it. So I'm like, well, I'm going to be damned if I'm going to be the little bitch who mentions anything about the fact that we're barreling towards this, like this big sign that says "Danger, Navigational Hazard." So by the time I realized that the guy driving clearly doesn't know that he's headed for this, because he was pitched too far up. The girls are kind of like talking amongst themselves and chatting, and I'm the only one seeing this. By the time I say anything about it, it's too late to do anything about it, and we just plow right into the channel marker.
Oh,
so,
Jesus.
Yeah, so that's how my like, I'm not gonna be the pussy story ended. so you know, yours ended a little bit better with the motorcycle, but that's cool, man. So talk to us a little bit about, you know, kind of on your journey of ruggedness. You're saying you started working out consistently in 2016, and then you kind of had that change in 2019 where you went a little bit more, you know, deeper, or more, you know, kind of into it, you know, holistic, you know, full on with it. What were those turning points? Like, what was it that sort of was the initial back in, you know, what, almost 5 years ago now? And then, you know, almost 2 years ago now, that wanted you to amp it up. What gave you that leverage to kind of, you know, get out there and start doing it?
That's a good question. Yeah. So I feel like for people to want to change, they have to almost hit rock bottom, right? Like, or just like really want to change. And so in 2016, it was like the end of 2015, I had just started dating that gal that got me into audiobooks and stuff like that. But and I was now 2 years removed from a divorce, and I had gained a ton of weight during my marriage. You know, I got all the way up to like 230 pounds, and I'm only like, what's that?
How tall are you?
I'm only like 5'10". So 230 at 5'10", I mean, that's chunky,
Yeah.
pretty
Yeah.
chunky. And I just wasn't happy with the way I looked. I was just like, I'd look in the mirror and just be disgusted. Like, this is gross. I was in the military, so I know how to work out.
Right.
You had weight training in high school, and so I knew the fundamentals. I knew what I had to do, and I'd lost weight before. I just, and I would always blame it on my ex-wife.
Right.
I'd get in a really good routine. I'd work out a lot. I'd start to, count calories but then we would go on like vacation, and my ex-wife, my now ex-wife, would always be like, well, do you have to work out this week? Why don't you take a week off? And I'd just be like, yeah, you're right. And then next thing you know, when we came back from whatever trip it was, I just wasn't working out anymore because I
Right.
got lazy for a whole week. And so I finally got up to that weight, and I was like, I'm disgusted by this, and
Right.
I've got to change it. So I just made that determination that no matter what, I don't care if I'm traveling, I don't care if it's a blizzard outside, I don't care if it's raining, I am working out, and I'm going to follow a diet. And I just made that decision, and I stuck with it. And
Right.
now it's at the point where, like, if I'm sick, right? Like if I
Mhm.
get like a flu or something, that's even then I still try to do something, at least go for a walk,
Sure.
because I'm like, if I don't fucking do this, I'm not going to, and I'm going to
Right.
get to 230 pounds again. I'm never letting that happen again. So I made that determination 5 years ago and just stuck with it.
Right.
So then fast forward to 2020. So I was with that gal like right after my divorce, and we were together for like 4.5 years. And that ended in the summer of 2019. And it's funny because when I got done with my divorce, like I was super bitter about marriage. I just thought it was
Mm.
like the worst thing ever, super anti-marriage. I felt like she was in the same boat at the same time because she was going through a nasty divorce too. And but by the end of that 4.5 years, like I was like madly in love with this chick.
Mhm.
And so she totally changed my perspective on the whole idea of marriage. There's still some stipulations. If I ever got married again, there's stipulations. There's a prenup, there's separate banking
Right.
accounts, but I could do it again.
Right.
And it was all because just I thought she and I just had the most fantastic relationship, but it ended up sort of fizzling out, near the end because you know certain circumstances, like her kids all moved out. She was
Mhm.
finally like in a place where she didn't have to take care of kids because she got pregnant in high school, and
Mhm.
she'd basically had to rush into being a mom right away. So this was the first time in her life where she had some freedom.
And
And
probably still pretty young if she had kids in high school. So
yeah, she's a couple years younger than me.
yeah.
So yeah, so she finally had some freedom, and I kind of got the impression that I was weighing her down, which is
Mhm.
kind of shitty, but is what it is. And I live like an hour away from her, so we basically were on again, off again every other week because I have my kids every other week, and
Right.
that just wasn't working for her. So we ended up parting ways, and then I found myself back on the dating circuit again. This time was much better because I was in shape.
Yeah. That
imagine
helps.
imagine that actually helps out quite a bit, guys. Staying in shape, you'll do better with women. Weird. But still, like I would go on these dates, and I also learned to be a little more forward, with with women and stuff like that. And I felt like that helped out quite a bit. But still, I couldn't get past, like, a lot of times, like I would, meet women, I'd hook up, but I couldn't get past like the third date mark or the fourth date mark. Or I did get into one like maybe 3-month relationship with this police officer chick. If you listen to my podcast, you'll hear about police officer chick. So I dated her for like 3 months, but even that fizzled out, and I just didn't like her that much. I just didn't think we clicked. But so that ended like the end of 2019. And so then I just really at the beginning of 2020 was like, what am I doing wrong here?
Right.
I've I've had, two major relationships my whole life. The marriage, and then the gal for 4.5 years. The two
Mhm.
longest relationships I ever had. Both of those failed. Why? What did I do wrong? Like
Got it.
I read a book called Extreme Ownership by Jocko Willink and Leif
Mhm.
Babin.
Yeah.
And that just changed my whole mindset on everything, right? Because a lot of people, like, their relationship fails and they like to blame the other person. Oh, that person's a narcissist. That person's a cheater. That person's blah, blah, blah. But it's like, take some fucking ownership. What did
Well,
you do wrong in that relationship?
not only, I mean, I haven't read the book, but ultimately it comes down to, you know, well, you picked a narcissist, or you picked
Sure.
like whatever, fill in the blank. I mean, you did that. They were what they were. It's sort of like,
Yeah.
it's like the snake goes after the mice. It's just what it does. It's like you picked something that does what it does. So, again, not knowing all the rest of the contents of the book, but that it all boils down. You can slice it, whatever way you want, but that's ultimately your responsibility. I mean, that's your thing that you did.
Yeah, and that's a great way of looking at those types of circumstances, right? Like, you knew this person was a cheater, and then because they left you for the last person, and now
Right.
they're leaving you again. Like, well, that's your fucking fault,
Sure. Right.
The last relationship, I realized, just in hindsight, reading a lot of these books, the 5 love languages, all this stuff, I got complacent at the end. I wasn't doing what I should have been doing, or what that I was doing from the beginning when I first started courting her, and I feel like a lot of guys get into that mode.
Mhm.
They get into complacency. And it really just dawned on me that I had failed that relationship. That's why she left.
Okay.
That's why I wasn't, floating her boat anymore.
Got it.
And so, yeah, I mean, it was just a lot of self-reflection, and that's why I ended up where I am now.
Great, man. That sounds like and what is it that you would say as you continue to work out, you continue to work on your relationships and dating and getting out there and doing those things that you enjoy doing? We know what got you into it in the beginning. What would you say is it that keeps you going? What gives you that, like, when you don't want to move, when you've had your last IT call of the day, that keeps you wanting to do more? Because you do a lot. I mean, what, just the setup that you've got here, I mean, is indicating, you put some time into investment into doing a podcast. So what continues to keep you going after you've kind of got yourself on this roll?
Oh, got it. Yeah. Well, a lot of it's discipline, because Jocko Willink, the guy who wrote that Extreme Ownership book, he has a really great video on YouTube that he did for Prager University, talking about how how discipline is greater than motivation, because
Right.
motivation is a feeling. It's fleeting. It comes and goes, right? So people that are just waiting to get motivated to get off the couch to go do something, oftentimes never get off the couch because they never find that motivation. But if you're disciplined and you go, I have to get off this couch, I don't give a fuck what's going on, that's what keeps me going. Just knowing I have to do that. And so, like, when it comes to like my day job and work, a lot of that is goal setting. I know I have projects that have to get done, and I pride myself, as an IT director, of making sure that my team always gets things done either on time or ahead of time.
Okay.
And we always do. Like, we're like the miracle dream team. I don't want to toot my own horn, but I'm going to.
Good for you, man.
And we have like a whole technology department, and it's funny because my counterparts in the dev team, they're always finding excuses why they can't meet deadlines, why this is so hard, why we can't do anything. And I'm always like, I tell my team, like, guys, well, let's not look at why we can't do something. Let's try to figure out how we can do something.
Mm-hmm.
And and I just set that mentality in my team, and they make miracles happen. And
Great.
and so that's what I do for my, for work. As far as like podcasting, making sure I'm listening to audiobooks and working out, like, I just enjoy that kind of stuff. Yeah. So it's pretty
Good.
easy to do. When it comes to the podcast, I do set certain goals. So my initial goal when I started the podcast was at least have one episode a week. And so I record a lot of episodes ahead of time so that it's easy to do that. I have episodes recorded all the way out until June now.
And
So
we're
they're
February, just so everybody who sees this knows, and
right.
there's some lag time there.
Yeah. So, I mean, if you go back and listen to the podcast after this episode, or, go to YouTube channel and watch one of the episodes, that was recorded or filmed like months ago. Just there's a space-time continuum there. But the fact that we can record these and put it in the can and stuff like that makes that weekly schedule super easy to follow. I could take 2 weeks off if I want to, and it's no stress.
Yep.
So I just enjoy doing it. It's just fun. And I like meeting other guys that are on their 3% path, and just finding out what makes them tick, what works for them, what doesn't, stuff like that.
Exactly. Yeah. That's what kind of keeps me into it as well. It's just, I enjoy it, and it can be an outlet, and I get to do, enjoyable stuff like what we're doing right now. And it's actually, productive work. So it's a win-win situation. So tell us about, Come On Man, the podcast. Where can we find it? What's it about? How long have you been doing it? And whatever else you want to say about it.
Sure. So I registered the domain comeonmanpod.com, and that's just a redirect. It'll take you to my anchor.fm page, where you can find links to, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, YouTube, stuff like that. So I usually just give that link out as just an easy thing for everyone. But I started this back in August of 2020. And it was after having spent several months in the 3% Man Facebook group, which you're a member of. For the people watching, it's a very exclusive group. Like, you cannot get into the group unless you have read How to Be a 3% Man, and you're able to answer specific questions about the book. Because there's a lot of people that when that group was first started by Christopher Kokoski, it was a lot like any other manosphere group that you find on Facebook, where it's just like women bashing, bashing betas, bashing 97%ers. And that's not helpful to anybody.
Yeah.
So I got invited by Luke, who's been on your show before.
Yep, he has.
I got invited by Luke and Chris to be an admin, to be one of the moderators in the group. And like, we all sort of collaborated, and we're like, let's make this like the best men's group around. Like, this is going to be a group for positive people, like guys that just want to be better men, guys that are following the book, not people that are just showing up trying to get free advice without having to do the work. Because reading the book 10 to 15 times is a part of the process. It's what changes your mindset. So we did that. And then I was spending a lot of time like on the dating circuit, practicing what I was learning in the books, sharing what I was doing with the group, date updates, stuff like that, getting feedback from other guys. And I'm kind of a creative person. So I just got this idea one day, like, I could probably do a podcast about this and interview other students. So it's really a podcast for fellow students of not just How to Be a 3% Man, but just men who want to be better in general, much like your show. Sure. And, one of the things too, you find on YouTube about guys that, start learning about this stuff is they all try to have a channel on, and they're all trying to be dating coaches.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
And exactly. I know like Benny Lichtenwalder was just on your show.
Yeah.
Benny is like one of the only dating coaches that I will recommend, because he is fascinating. And
he is. Very much so.
Yeah. But I have no aspirations of being a dating coach. None.
Right. Yeah.
Zero.
Exactly. Yeah.
So I look at my show as like, I'm not a dating coach. I'm a student just like you. Let's compare notes. What's working for you? This is what works for me. Does it work for you? Oh, it doesn't work for you. Like, it's a great show to just, bounce things off each other. If you watch like Corey Wayne's YouTube channel, Corey Wayne has people email in, and he reads their email, and he critiques what they did right, what they did wrong, and stuff like that. This show is like the guys who are sending in the emails talking, so that's the way I look at it. It's a very, I like to think it's a very unique approach to learning about dating. It's guys, boots on the ground, comparing notes.
Absolutely. Because then you can kind of clarify with it whatever the nuances are. You get that email, and it's like you have to kind of, he's got to take it, and then he's got to interpret what he thinks that person's saying with it, and then give an answer based on that. Where it's like, maybe the person who's sitting there and who wrote the email needed to just say, no, I meant this, or not exactly this. And then just that little, fork in the path gives you a whole different response. So it's like, I've often wondered as I've watched those videos, it's like, I'm sure that a lot of these guys get a lot of value from that response, but it's like, do you ever like sit there, send an email in, wait however many weeks and think, he didn't exactly know what he asked that one question and I wasn't able to clarify it. So the answer that he gave was just kind of off, you know?
Right.
So, but what you're doing gives like that real-time course correction and probably, I would say definitely provides a lot more value for the guys who are willing to participate in that.
Yeah, I would say so too. I mean, think about it like a high school class or a college class, right?
Mhm.
When a student raises his hand and asks a question, and then maybe some other student has heard of that before, and then they'll chime in and go, well, yeah, actually this, and then you have the students collaborating in the classroom, because that happens. You
Yeah.
can learn from other students almost as
Yeah.
well as you can from the teacher.
Yeah,
You know,
exactly. Well, yeah, I had a comment just about something, someone's take on the 3% man stuff. And, they said, well, if you read it 14 or 15 times, it's like, you know what? I could have read it 14 or 15 times, but until you added that take on it, I would have been reading the same thing 14 or 15 times. But the way that you kind of like put the accent on this part of the sentence as opposed to this part of the sentence led me to, open my eyes to, like it was kind of, not, a little, those little aha moments that, kind of come from collaborating and interacting with others, I think are, priceless.
yeah, definitely. And going back to what you said, where someone writes some short thing in an email, and then Corey's got to interpret that, and it might not have been interpreted correctly. You see that a lot on the 3% Man Facebook group, where
Sure.
some guys will post a text interaction. They felt it went this way, and then you got guys who read it completely different, offering their insight in the comments,
Sure.
and you're like, and then the people usually who originally posted were like, well, you don't know the full story. This is what actually happened. You see that
Right.
all the time in the group.
Yeah. It's tough to know what to, because like you want to try to keep it brief so that keeps people engaged. Well, good stuff, man. So we've got just to kind of sum it up, we've got Paul Bauer. He is IT director, and in addition to that, he stays rugged. He's got a full workout routine that he switches up. But if you ever watch some of his videos, you'll see him out there kind of like beating, walking the pavement while he's doing those videos. But it's got weightlifting. You check him out. He's definitely, I would say, if you've got responsibilities in life and you're not, a professional athlete, where you don't have a job where they're paying you to make sure that you stay in shape, and you've got like your shoulders are bigger than your waist, you're doing something right. So you qualify as rugged as far as that's concerned. And he's also working on a podcast. Come on, man. Which we can find. He's going to provide the link for us. It'll be in the description down below, so that you can find him, whether it's on Spotify, iTunes, YouTube, etc. And anything that you want to say, Paul, before we wrap it up, that you'd like to add and throw out to the audience?
I just for the podcast, we have full podcast episodes every Monday, so you can find those on pretty much every podcast platform that you list on. But if you subscribe on my YouTube channel, we have the weekly podcast episodes every Monday, but I also do little vlogs here and there of things that I'm learning, things that I'm figuring out. I just did a date update. So stuff like that, that keeps things a little more interesting that you don't get from just the audio version.
Great. Well, thanks, man. Thanks for being on. Thanks for doing this interview. And check it out, guys. Appreciate it. Have a rugged day.
Thanks.